Are we ready?
Almost. We are ready now.
Good evening, College Place Planning Commission, and all those watching live on YouTube. Live streaming. We welcome you to the 400th meeting of the College Place Planning Commission. And I hereby call us to order. No gavel noise, sorry about that, but we'll move on anyway. So can we do roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Olson, you're on mute. He's here. He is just muted. Commissioner Roth,
Here.
Commissioner Lauterbach,
Here.
Commissioner Riceley,
Here.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
and it seems we do not have Commissioner Brennis with us at this time. We do also have John Rickard, Community Development Director, and Christy Sugar, Community Development Administrative Assistant, and myself, Carolyn Holm, Deputy City Clerk.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to any public comment available at this time.
The clerk's office has none submitted. What about you, John?
We haven't received anything as well.
Okay, we have no public comment to put into the record, so we'll move on to our consent agenda. I need a motion to approve our consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion is carried. Consent agenda is approved. And now to our regular agenda. Our regular agenda is to be election of officers for 2021. I guess what we're looking for is a motion for some officers positions, but I don't even know how many we have. So just the board chair, is that the only one we need to deal with?
We need a nomination for chair and a nomination for vice chair.
Okay, well, I'm going to start it off and nominate Commissioner Roth for the chair position.
I'm willing to serve, but I'm happy to have competition. I'd be happy to have someone else take that role. Commissioner Lauterbach, are you interested in continuing?
No, actually, I'm not. I have too many things on my plate right now.
Do we have a second for Commissioner Roth as chair?
I'll second it.
All in favor of Commissioner Roth being our new chair, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Folks,
you got me.
The opposed is not quite carrying us tonight. So, Commissioner Roth, congratulations, you are our new chair.
All right. Well, thank you.
So I can call for a nomination of the vice chair, but pretty much from now on, this is your baby.
All right. Are there nominations for vice chair?
So the vice chair would run the meeting in the absence of the chair.
I nominate Commissioner Ricewig.
I second the motion.
All right.
And then do we have a consensus for Commissioner Ricewig as vice chair?
Yes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. Congratulations, Commissioner Reiswig.
Thank you, I think.
Or condolences, as the case may be. All right. So Carolyn, I may need to rely on you to make sure that I'm on track this evening, but I'll try to
Okay.
I'll try to
John,
do what I can.
John can actually run both of the reports for you guys,
All right.
so he can say what he needs to say.
Good.
Oh, I have two reports. Are we ready to get into,
Yes, I think we're ready for Planning Commission Handbook.
oh, right, yes. And I may have Carolyn, can you go ahead and open up that agenda item? I'm working off of an iPad, so.
Yes. Okay, so I can like help you with this one, but I can't help you with the other one.
Right. So essentially what so in the past, some of you who've been on the commission for a while probably received a paper, a binder, that we called our handbook for the Planning Commission. And it contains a number of items in there, Open Public Meetings Act, various roles of the Planning Commission, and we've consolidated that into an electronic platform, and so you can access it through Board Docs. It's going to be this, yeah, right there. So it'll always be in the current year for you to access, and within that. So just, there's a whole gamut of information, general information, procedures for public hearings, links to the Growth Management Act, which guides, all of our planning principles in the state, a link to our municipal code. So if you're wondering, what's in our current zoning code, you can get into that. It's all contained within Title 17, which you all are very familiar with from the update that you've all worked on. And
So when you go there,
yeah, go ahead, Carolyn, since you're running
you would need to go down to Title 14 for the UDC. And that has everything that you guys worked on combining last year.
And then there's, the GMA, there's ethics and planning, which is just a simple document. I think it's like a one-page document you should all read if you haven't already. Risk management. So, how do you deal with, your neighbor coming up to you and asking you about, this hearing that's going to be held on, whatever the topic may be, and disclosing that information at the meeting if you had a conversation with somebody about it before you hold a hearing to make a decision. Open Public Meetings Act, you're all required to have training on that. It's provided by the state. Once you go through that training, there's a certificate that you need to fill out and turn into the clerk. Yeah, go ahead, and Carolyn, if you want to go through that a little bit.
So I believe with the new members, we don't have some of the certificates. I know we have yours, Brian. But this tells you how to get there. I don't know why.
Carolyn, do you recall about how long it takes to do the training? Is it like an hour or half an hour? Or?
It's a video that you watch, and it's like maybe 12, 14 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I can't.
So if you haven't done that, we need you to do that. It's kind of a liability if you haven't gone through that training. And then you just fill out the certificate. And if you need help filling out the certificate, we can help you with that too.
Is this something that, now I've gone to training up to date in the past. Do we have to do this every year?
You do it one time and it's good for 4 years. So
Yeah,
every
so
4
you
years.
you might need to go through the refresher on that, Eileen.
Okay,
And if you wonder if your current Carolyn or Lisa can probably help you determine that. So just get a hold of them. And then
okay,
the last one is just the appearance of fairness doctrine. So there's no certification involved in that, but you should familiarize yourself with that as well. So
I guess that means that you only have to have an appearance of fairness and not actual fairness.
So to go, it's basically just meeting, just like another meeting book. Pretty easy to find.
All right, John, anything in particular that you want us to be sure and be mindful of in this new year in this document?
Well, it's all the same information. There's not anything new other than the Growth Management Act, gets updated periodically, but there's not anything new from last year that was changed in that. I think they're working on some amendments to that in the coming year on pertaining to, I think, environmental stuff.
Hmm.
So we'll try to keep you posted on that. But
Yeah.
no, we just wanted you to, have this available and make sure that you've gone through the training and then, the links to, excuse me, the links to our municipal code, that's always a handy one to have access to. So any questions on that?
Yes, any questions from the commissioners? All right, hearing none, shall we proceed to our next agenda item? While housing needs assessment. And John, are you on again for this one?
I am, yeah. So we're in the process of a regional housing action plan in partnership with the city of Walla Walla, Dayton, Waitsburg, and the county. And so part of that process is a housing needs assessment. And so that's what the attached document is about. I'm not going to go into it in great detail. It's not a real big document. I think it's like, I don't know, 21 pages. But it has a lot of great statistics in it on where we're at in terms of our existing conditions. Everything from demographics, to, housing needs, I guess a couple of things I would point out in it is that's interesting to me is our income levels based on the state average. Those are important factors. So we are below the state average. I think by roughly 13,500. So the county-wide, we're at, I think, 56,000 roughly is the median income in Walla Walla County, whereas in the state it's 70,000. So that's a pretty significant difference. In addition to that, we've seen it over the last 10 years. We've seen a loss of higher paying jobs. We're seeing an increase in more service sector jobs. And so that is just adding to the cost of housing. We're seeing our housing inventory shrink, and the cost of housing continue to go up, where our incomes are actually dropping. A couple other things that I would point out in it. our housing mix is predominantly in College Place in particular. It's 59% for single family detached. And we don't have a lot of multifamily, although we have a higher number of duplexes and townhomes compared to the rest of the communities in the valley. Kind of 26%. Walla Walla is 11%. So for the region, 14% of our housing is in townhomes or duplexes. But in terms of our multifamily, so the duplexes and multifamily are kind of those are the part of we're seeing a demand in those because of our income levels are dropping. So and hopefully we'll be adding some units, but I don't know that they'll necessarily be in that affordable factor. But that's something for us to think about as we move forward, to consider what our housing needs are. Is it strictly single family homes, or do we need to find other areas where multifamily can be developed?
John, I got a quick
yeah.
question on that. Do you,
Sure.
is there any information there on like ADUs? Is that the right word?
ADUs were not factored into that.
They are not.
It doesn't pop up. It's probably one of those housing types that, as you know, if we were to do this 10 years from now, it probably would be a housing type that would be calculated into the numbers. And certainly I think it's part of the solution going forward.
Well, and I think for College Place especially, it's going to be it might be our only solution, because it's not, well, we do get that new property there across from the high school, McCarran Christian Properties, and there might be some multi-developments in there, but boy, it just seems like we don't even hardly have any place for any of that right now. So the
Yeah.
ADU seems to be the number one way, in my opinion, of getting our affordable housing potentials up.
Yeah, that's definitely part of the equation. Just in single family construction, if you go to page 6 of the report, you'll see that our demand is not really keeping up with what we're building is not keeping up with the demand. And in fact, this year was pretty abysmal compared to last year's for College Place. Usually, we're around 40 units of single family home construction, and this year we built 22 units. And I don't see that number going up unless, at least in the next year, possibly 2 years, unless there's some significant movement on that property that you just mentioned across from the high school. So that's concerning. And I don't know, I think Walla Walla is in a better position than us because they have more available land for single family construction as they do with multifamily. But it's a concern. Another factor, if you move on to page 7, Carolyn, the tenancy and vacancy levels. We usually like to see a healthy rate is between 6 and 7% of vacancy rates, and we're below 3%, significantly below 3%. In fact, in College Place, we're at like 0.7 to 0. So what that means is that even housing that is not desirable or in good condition, there's a premium for those units as well. And it also means that people are they're forced into housing that is maybe more than they need. So maybe you only need a 1-bedroom house or apartment, but you can't find that. So you end up with a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, or maybe you end up, in a house and where you want an apartment. So that's a big concern across the region. And then home prices and rents, as I touched on a little bit, have gone up dramatically. In the last 8 years, we've seen an increase in the median home prices increased by $93,000. And that's a tremendous increase that most people with our incomes dropping cannot keep up with. They can't, they're being priced out of the market if they can even get into a house or qualify for a loan. The market's so competitive that what we're seeing is people are paying over asking, or the appraisals are coming in lower than what the
Agreed upon
sale
price.
price is, and they're having to come to the table with more cash to make up the difference. What else?
I'm curious, is that median house price has actually, I believe, gone up even since June.
Yeah, it probably
So,
has. This
yeah.
report was finished in October, but I think they're working off of data that's probably a year old. So
Yeah, and starting about till, I don't know, probably July on, our house prices skyrocketed, and I'll bet you that we're even at the 300,000 mark now for median house prices. So, and I don't know about anybody else, but pretty much anything over $200,000 is out of affordable housing. And right now on the MLS, I think we have 4 homes under $200,000 available, and that's it. And that might even be high. I think it was only 2 a couple weeks ago. So that's a huge problem for us. Even on Deccio, we even have one townhouse condominium that's for sale, and it's over $200,000. So,
and a lot of those homes that are, in the lower price range come with lots of needed improvements as well. So
absolutely.
Moving on to page 10, the housing attainability section. This section talks about our families that are cost burdened or severely cost burdened. If you pay more than 30% of your gross income on housing, that's considered cost burdened. And then it's considered severely cost burdened if you're paying more than 50% of your gross income on housing. So we're in that severely cost burdened category. You look at those charts, that's a problem. 20% of our population is severely cost burdened. So, and that's only going to get worse from what I'm reading out of this report.
Well, I'll tell you from my experience, because I'm about to close on 2 multifamily units here in town, and I think half of the renters that are leaving those 2 units had to go to the Tri-Cities because our prices are too high in town.
Yeah. Kind of moving on to page 14, the housing supply gap, and I touched on this a little bit earlier. There, if you look at the chart there, there's kind of a missing missing middle housing type. So somewhere in between townhomes and duplexes and cottages, those homes are not readily available. There has been, it seems like there's enough, possibly enough traditional single family. But when you get into the smaller units, we're lacking those. So I think that's where, you know, the ADUs can come in, maybe some more, maybe cottage development, townhomes type stuff. Moving into the housing needs forecast, for Walla Walla County, we're anticipating a need of, in the next 20-year planning window, roughly 4,000 dwelling units to accommodate the growing population.
And what was that time frame again?
It's a 20-year planning window.
Okay. Wow.
And what we're finding is from this study, anyhow, you know, the county might argue differently, but there just isn't the land available to build those units. So, I mean, the consensus is from this report is that in College Place in particular, based on the land use analysis that the county went with, is that, you know, 43% of our net new housing will be constructed on infill and redevelopment lots, and that's just way too high of a number to rely on redevelopment. We need more land that doesn't have housing units on it already to accommodate the future growth. In College Place, I mean, we're only looking at just under 800 dwelling units, which I would argue is a low number, simply based on the way the county allocates population. I have a beef with that. The way the county allocates population is we're roughly 15% of the population, so therefore we only get 15% of the growth, and that's just a ridiculous way to allocate growth, in my professional opinion. That's how the county has been doing it since we entered into growth management, is they've you know, done the math, and that's how they allocate UGA. But what should be happening is that the rural unincorporated county population should be shrinking in terms of it shouldn't be shrinking. It's always going to continue to grow, but the amount of growth they allocate to the unincorporated areas should be less. They should become less and less part of the equation as the urban areas, as growth management, you know, dictates, is that's where the growth is supposed to occur. So, you know, we've been in GMA since basically 95 or 6, I think. So, you know, we should have a higher goal. You know, maybe we should be 30% of the county population, and Walla Walla should be 50 or 60%. I don't know what those exact numbers should be, but we're basically planning for stagnant growth, in my opinion. So that's one of the things that needs to be addressed. So I would encourage you to read through this. Like I said, it's not a super big document. There's a lot of good facts and figures in there. And I by no means did it any justice by what I just presented to you, but this is some good groundwork for the battle that we have coming up with the county in terms of getting them to update the countywide planning policies that date back to 1993. And that document, that kind of lays the groundwork for how we do our buildable lands analysis and the growth allocations that I just talked about. This is going to be good ammunition for us to justify why we should we should be doing things differently than we have been. So please familiarize yourself with it, and stay tuned for the final housing action plan that we'll be bringing forward the next probably 6 months, I think, is the time frame on that. So any questions?
Any questions from our commissioners?
I don't have a question. I have more of a comment, John, and this is just from past experience when I was building. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. And they're assuming, I was reading through this earlier and then skimming through it now while you're talking, they're assuming that the large percentage of that housing capacity is going to come from urban infill. And from a profitability standpoint, that's really not that feasible. Because you a lot of those urban infill spots are in less desirable neighborhoods, and it's very difficult to try and build something there and be profitable because nobody will buy it. Although in the current market, somebody will. I was pleased to see, and I think it's been about 10 years ago, Walla Walla actually, and I think it was with the Housing Authority, did do a bunch of multifamily urban infill, which obviously is subsidized housing, but that's the only way some of those lots are ever going to be developed and utilized. And it definitely should give us some good sound arguments to change our urban growth boundaries and push out into some of our property that's easier to develop than what we've historically been developing.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's and you guys, you're all familiar with the configurations of the core of College Place, the old part that, College Place number 1 and number 2, the old plats. They're mostly very narrow lots and super deep. And with the housing patterns that we have, you'd be lucky if we had, if you've got, 20 feet to get a little sliver of a driveway through that can accommodate two-way traffic. It really is going to take somebody that has a vision and has time to accumulate, larger tracts of land, multiple properties, to make a redevelopment feasible in our economy here. It's these secondary lots, they do happen, but they're, they may be less appealing for future home buyers, but it takes some creativity to make those developments happen, and some resources because it's not going to happen in 6 months. You have to be passionate about it. And so not to say that we won't continue to see redevelopment, but not at the rate that can, supply another 800 housing units in the next 20 years. That's just simply not going to be where our housing units come from.
Good. Any other questions for John? John, I really appreciated this preview to the document and your exhortation for us to go and read through it carefully. This is really helpful context, I think, for our work. So thank you for sharing with us this evening. Was there anything else that you wish to share regarding the document?
Not regarding the document, but moving forward in this next year, we're probably going to be asking you guys to consider some upzoning in our single family, similar to what Walla Walla has done, where they allow, I think it's up to 4 units in the single family residential zone. The legislature is really still hammering away at that as a way to increase housing and make it more affordable. So, we'll see where that lands. I think we'll probably have Greg. We'll bring him back next month to talk about some comprehensive plan amendments. I think that's going to be primarily our focus this year. Is, we've had our comp plan for a couple of years now, and we will need to crack that back open and see if there's any minor tweaks that we need to make to it in the coming year. So I think we'll bring it back in February for that.
Well, that's a helpful preview of what's ahead. Thank you.
Yep.
Good. Well, I think that completes our agenda. Is there anything we've missed? No.
I don't think so.
All right. Any parting questions or comments from the commissioners? Or from
Carolyn, what's our next meeting date? Is it?
It is February 16th.
Okay, so mark your calendars for that, and last year, and look forward to the coming 2021. Hopefully it's better than 2020.
Hopefully
Hindsight's
we'll be able to-
2020, right?
Hopefully we'll be able to meet in person again sometime this year.
Yeah, well, I think we just got news today that probably not this year. Maybe late this year we might actually be able to meet in person, but we'll see. They continued the or I think the governor is expected to extend the Open Public Meeting Act process that allows us to meet via Zoom. So,
Okay.
but hey, we're very fortunate to have this technology. It's actually worked out quite well, and
We've had a few snafus here and there, but overall, it's been pretty good.
yeah,
Thanks,
I
Carolyn.
might actually kind of miss it.
All right. Well, thank you. I think with that, our meeting is adjourned.
All right, thank you. Good
We
evening.
just need a first and a second for adjourning, and
Alright.
for you to announce the time of
Okay,
adjournment.
good. Is there a motion to adjourn
I motion to
motion.
adjourn.
and a second?
I'll second it.
And you
Second.
don't need a vote, Carolyn?
Nope. Just
Okay.
a first and a second, and we're adjourned at 7:38.
Thank you.
And welcome, Brian,
Thank you. And
for
thank you.
being the chair.
Yeah,
And you
thanks
too,
for taking
Todd.
that on. Hey, we still have a vacancy, by the way. If anybody knows of anybody that would be interested, let Carolyn or I know of their names so we can harass them. So,
All right, and thank you, Commissioner Lauterbach, for your service.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
yeah,
Everybody
I can't
have a
believe you
good
didn't want
day.
to do it for another year.
Too busy.